Welcome. This is Tech Works CI Series Collaborative Intercom System, Technical Training Part 1. I am Mark Dundas, and I will be your host. This training is a 3-part training where some of ours are 4-part. This one, we have the product overview. The parts and pieces are Part 2. Part 3 is system wiring. This is Part 1, the systems overview. There is a presentation guide available online. If you go to the website, print that out. It helps to follow along. And then when you've completed all 3 parts of the training, if you take the test, you can become a certified TechWorks installer. Let's talk about CI Series Collaborative Intercom System. What is it? First and foremost, it is a hands-free audio communication solution. The objective is if you have 2 rooms, 2 spaces that are isolated from one another. Typically in a hospital, it would be an operating room with an observation area. It could be a child development center where there's an observation area, but it's where someone isn't in the same room, but they want to talk hands-free as if they are in the same room. That's what collaborative intercom does. Lots of different pieces to the puzzle to make that happen. But it gives you the ability to be in one room and talk to someone else and or listen to someone else in that other room as if you were in the same room. Let's talk about the target markets. Where is this stuff used? In healthcare, it's used in procedure rooms, operating rooms, cath labs, mental health observation, child development observation, and neonatal monitoring. One of the areas that it gets a lot of use is in neonatal. You've got a mom with a child and the nurse is not there. They're at the nurse's station and something happens and the mom needs help. The baby isn't doing well or is just concerned about what they're observing with their child. And they can just talk to the nurse can talk to them, they can have a 2-way conversation without anybody touching anything. Detention and security observation. One of the things that's done is in international airports. They detain people, and when they do, they put them in an isolation room, sometimes along with their family or cohorts, and they just listen to what they say. Very interesting what goes on in some of those conversations. In industry, clean rooms. So in the pharmaceutical industry, as an example, all the pills for senior centers are now prepackaged by an outsource and then sent to the facility. So they don't have a pharmacy necessarily inside of the senior living facility. They get the drugs in there with the residents' names on them, and they distribute them sometimes through a barcode system, whatever they use for control. But those are all packaged in an industrial setting, and that is a clean room, and they do need to communicate with people outside of the clean environment. So let's talk about some of the parts and pieces. We'll get into this more in the second presentation, but basically, the objective here is it's all modular. You only buy the pieces of the puzzle that you need to communicate. So for instance, if you are going to have headsets, you buy the headset interface and the headsets. If you don't want headsets, you buy microphone speakers and a microphone speaker interface. If you have an operator or observation location, you buy a console, maybe with a headset, maybe without a headset. This is where you have the talk, listen buttons and control and that type of thing. But it's all hands-free in the operating room environment. These components all plug together with simple computer patch cables, just simple Cat6 patch cables. Plug these boxes together to add the features that you need in your system. So let's talk about what do you want to do. In a cath lab, you might mount the amplifier, the microphone speaker interface, under the counter. And up on top of the counter, you might put a console with a headset. This microphone speaker interface is attached to a microphone and a speaker inside of the cath lab environment. So this is a clean room speaker mounted in the ceiling. This is a shotgun microphone mounted on the wall, pointed at the table. You can also add background music to this system. So let's say the doc wants to rock out while they're doing a procedure. You can add a PA402 amplifier and a music speaker in that room and play music for the doctor from his iPhone. You can also add headsets. If the doctor or the providers in that room need to communicate and it's a high noise environment, or they have some other criteria where they want to add headsets, just add a headset interface, add the amount of headsets you want. Sterile compounding clean room in chemotherapy. Here's another example of something. This could also be observation rooms. Doesn't have to be clean rooms, could be observation rooms. But you give them a foot switch in there to signal that they need to talk to somebody. The button lights up, the operator selects that room, and they're in full hands-free communication from that point forward. All they got to do is talk and listen. This person out here controls the conversation by selecting one of 4 rooms and by controlling the conversation with a push to talk. This side can also be hands-free, depending on how you set this up. This can be so that it's Vox operated. So whenever they talk, it's automatic. They don't have to push the push to talk button. Again, you can add a headset if that's desirable. You can add headsets in the clean rooms if that's desirable. All modular. Observation rooms. So this could be just a simple system where you've got a table or a workroom or a child play area. You put a hidden microphone in there, and all you have is a speaker in the listening environment. You can do a lot more with this too. You let your mind come up with all kinds of ideas. The idea is that the magic is in these electronic components. All the electronics needed to amplify a microphone and feed it to a speaker. There's notch filters. There's all kinds of things built into these boxes to make them work with the acoustic environment. All you need to do is just plug it in. It's very, very simple to install. Let's talk a bit about how sound works. You have a talker, that's obvious, and you have a listener. These two people can talk freely if they're in the same room. However, if they're separated by either distance or a barrier, like a wall, then you have a problem. Somehow you've got to get that talker over to that listener. That's typically done by connecting a microphone to a speaker. The talker has a microphone, picks up their voice, sends it to the speaker, who listens. The objective here with the speaker is to create an apparent acoustic image, a comfortable distance in front of that listener, that is if that person that is remote is standing right in front of them. So the objective here is that apparent acoustic image should be somewhere around 6 feet from that listener. So not in their face, not shouting at them, not invading their privacy, but at the same time, very able to articulate within the listening environment. Articulation is the key. So what are the problems inherent with this? Feedback is the #1 problem in getting a system like this to work, because you've got the traditional, as we mentioned, talker listener. That part's easy. That's the easy part of this. But you also want the talker to listen and the listener to talk. So now you have to add a second sound system going the other direction. Well, what happens when those two combine? You get sound from this loudspeaker going into this microphone. You get sound from this loudspeaker going into this microphone. And the next thing you know, you have feedback. Now the thing is screaming because it's out of control and oscillating based on the physical dimensions of how far apart these are and the acoustics in each of the 2 rooms. Nasty mess, doesn't work, can't hear each other. So why does CI work? Why does our collaborative intercom work where other systems don't? We got the same wall, we got the same functionality, we got the same 2 microphones and speakers. Here's what's different. When an operator speaks, It's being processed through an automatic level control that controls and protects from any distortion. But at the same time, whenever they talk, we automatically reduce the level of their output speaker. You don't turn it off. You're still hearing what's going on in that procedure room, but it's ducking just enough to break that feedback loop so that less sound from the loudspeaker gets into the microphone. And voila, you don't have any more feedback, and you've got the maximum sound level from the operator to the listening environment. That's about it for what this system does and the basic functionality of how it works. All of these tools are available to you 24/7, 365. There's lots of stuff on our website at techworks-usa.com. There's product brochures, there's specifications, master format architect and engineer specifications on the website for these systems in different applications. We're always here for design assistance. We're happy to provide quotes. It's always very helpful to us the more you can tell us about what you're trying to do. So it's much better to send us an email with any documentation, plans, specs, any kind of documentation that you have on what you're trying to accomplish. It's also very helpful if you've taken these training sessions and read the installation manuals to be able to understand the components that we might recommend. So take the time, take the training, and then send us an email. That does it for part one. Up next is part two. Thank you for your time.